people come in. So welcome. This is we're in Sicily tonight. We're off if you look at the map, which Beth will show you, you'll see we're right off the toe. And Sicily and Puglia and Sardinia are parts of Italy that not many people had traveled really in years before. It wasn't the easiest place to get around. Maybe there weren't always the best accommodations. Even today, if you're traveling there, you really need to rent a car or have a driver. I mean, it's just not as convenient and easy to get around as you can in the north of Italy or central Italy. So I would kind of say that these regions of Italy are kind of Italy 3.0. So if you've done the north, you've been to Venice, you've done Florence, you've done Rome, you've gone down to the Amalfi Coast, and you still love this country and you haven't had enough, then you're on to the very south, Puglia, Sicily, and Sardinia. So we're going to go to Sicily tonight. And I'm going to introduce Beth Rubin from Olive Tree Escapes. And I know that I think we have one or two new people on tonight, so I'm going to give a little introduction again. I mean, Beth did study abroad in Italy and fell in love with the country like many of us do. And she had traveled all over and had lots of experiences and tips, and just decided that with her passion that she was going to follow was to start her own company, Olive Tree Escapes. And she has a partner, Maya, who is Croatian. And so the two of them, with the close association between Italy and Croatia through the history, and very similar, have created this fabulous company called Olive Tree Escapes. And Beth was awarded Travel and Leisure's A-list of top travel advisors. So that's pretty impressive too. So Beth, you've taken us through parts of Italy. Now we're way down south. Let's go to Sicily.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Bear with me while we do the terrible sharing of the screen, which sometimes takes longer than other times. Let's see.
Oh, I just sent him a message.
Bear with me. How's that? Are we good?
Yes, you're good.
Excellent. Hello. Okay, so as Sandy said, tonight we're going to Sicily. There I am, just in case you need to see the one professional photo I ever got. And here we go. So if you've been here before, you've seen the map on the left, and then we highlight the region we're talking about, and then you see a bigger version of it on the right. So as she mentioned, Sicily is the island that is being kicked by the toe of the boot. I was telling Sandy before you all joined in on the Zoom, I had a hard time putting this one together for you. Sicily is so rich. It's a bigger region than some of the others, as you can see from the map, and it just has so much. So I couldn't do it to myself, and I couldn't do it to you, to put everything that it has to offer into one 25-minute presentation. So what I chose to do instead was sort of make a 10-day trip, 7 to 10 day. If you're one of those fast travelers, you could do what I'm going to show you in 7 days, but this is really a nice 10-day trip, kind of circumnavigating the island. So without further ado, so like I said, Sicily is busy and there's lots going on. As we've looked at in other presentations, there is a capital, because there are 20 regions in Italy, and this is one of them. The capital of Sicily is Palermo. So we'll talk a little bit, we'll go in a little in depth about Palermo. It's got many different, it was conquered many times, let's say. So it has all kinds of influences. It's got Arab, it's got Norman, it's got Baroque, it's got all kinds of things. So the city is very interesting from that perspective. It's got art like all the others. It's got artisans, which is great. Food, which is always great. And then we're gonna kind of move around and visit some of the smaller towns. You can see them listed here, and I'll talk about them as well. Now, Sicily is also very heavily regarded for its ruins. The archaeological visits are amazing. You're not going to find anything better than you are in Sicily. You've got Segesta, Selinunte, Agrigento is probably the most famous with the Valley of the Temples. So we'll visit some of those. And they have many Greek theaters as well. So we'll visit some of those. And then of course, there's the wine. So there's always the opportunity to do private vineyard tours. And in this case, some of these vineyards are on the slopes of a volcano, which is pretty cool. So the wine is completely different. Obviously, Warren's going to talk about that. But to have these wines from this volcanic soil is a completely different wine experience than what we've been talking about on some of that flatter or hilly terrain that we looked at in the north and the center. So let's start in Palermo. I mean, look at this. This is ridiculous. This is in the city center of Palermo. It's an amazing city. And I think it gets a short shrift. Even if we say that Sicily gets a short shrift as far as travelers go, I think Palermo even further. It's like the Naples of Amalfi Coast, let's say, because it's a city and it's a little gritty and it's a little big. It's a capital city, but it has so much to offer that I recommend at least 3 days there. It's amazing. It's got everything you could possibly want. Look at that. I mean, this place is amazing. It's got amazing architecture. Again, you've got Arab, you've got Norman, you've got Baroque, and it's all in one city. On one street corner, there are 4 churches that are all facing each other like this. I mean, this place is amazing, and you just stumble upon it, and you have no idea. You're just walking down the road, and you stumble into this. It's not even a square. It's an intersection. And then, you know, the roads lead off and you find all these other amazing things. Absolutely. Even if you're going to do day trips, spend the 3 nights in Palermo. Also, a great place to do a food tour. We haven't really had a chance to talk about city food tours, but this is amazing. First of all, they have a great market. The Ballarò market is amazing. But then in the evening, you can walk around all these streets and there's amazing food to be had. So we'll talk a little bit about food. I don't know if you can tell what this lady is selling, but these are called arancini. Those are the rice balls that you know, but some of these places have really taken this to an art form. So there's all these different kinds, you know, they could be filled with fish, they could just be filled with rice, they could be filled with cheese or meat, and there's all these different options. So it's absolutely amazing. So I highly recommend doing a food tour. Craft beer would be included in that, which is pretty cool. I know we're talking about wine generally here, but Italy also has a really good craft beer scene. So that is something to think about. And when you go on the food tours, pretty much in any of the cities, you're going to be able to try the wine, but you're also going to be able to try the beer. And I don't know about you guys, but my husband doesn't drink wine, but he loves beer. So sometimes you've got a husband-wife dynamic where one likes the wine and one likes the beer. And this is a great way to resolve that issue.
Just because we're doing wine doesn't mean we don't like beer.
Yes, I saw someone commented that they wanted to next month, instead of champagne, do whiskey. Okay, so we talked about day trips. First of all, I should mention, because I didn't want to overload you on pictures and etc. So while Palermo is a city, it is also on the water. It's about 10 minutes from a beach called Mondello, which is a beautiful beach. Palermo they haven't really gotten with the times as far as 5-star accommodations go. So they have a couple of hotels in town that are considered 5-star, but I wouldn't give them that. But out by the beach, Rocco Forte has just opened, unfortunately this year for him, a 5-star resort. So there are good accommodations if that's what you're looking for, but otherwise in the city, there are very nice, excellent 4-star boutique hotels. But there is a beach area, so that is also something to consider. Even if you stay in the city and go out to the beach one day, or if you want to stay on the beach, just know that you have to have transportation into and out of the city. So I call that a day trip, let's say. And this is another day trip that I highly recommend from Palermo. Again, 3 nights so that you can go out and do something like this. This is Monreale. It's about a half an hour from the city. You can drive it yourself, like Sandy was saying, with a rental car, or have a private driver. I always recommend the driver and having a guide so that you know what you're seeing. This church is actually from the 12th century, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And this is the inside, which is amazing. Completely covered in mosaics. I can't remember what they said the weight of the gold was, but this is real gold inside here. This church is absolutely amazing and totally worth the day trip. 30 minutes is nothing so that you can see something like this. You also have to climb a few stairs, like 90, but that's okay. It's totally worth it, I promise.
Just 90, huh?
I tried not to count just because I was just
like Notre Dame.
Exactly. But it's not straight up. That's the cool thing. It's like one of those zigzag things. So it's like nothing's happening at all. You're just going up a little. So this is what I would consider the best day trip from Palermo. And then if you go a little further, but that requires driving time, that's when you start to hit sort of the archaeological areas that I was mentioning earlier. This is Selinunte, which is a good hour and 20 from Palermo. So it might be time to move your location when you do this area. So as I mentioned earlier, there are 3 really nice archaeological areas south of Palermo. Segesta, which I didn't put a photo of, Selinunte, and Agrigento. I think is the best of the 3. It's got what is called the Valley of the Temples. So imagine there's more than just this one temple. It's an amazing way to spend a day, to just go out and see things from so long ago. It's hard to imagine. We always think that we're the smartest ones and we're the most technological, but take a look at this temple. Think about how long ago that was built. And then the dude in the front is actually an art installation that got put up a few years ago, and then they decided to leave the art installation. So there are random bronzes sort of scattered throughout the Valley of the Temples. Some people think it's cool, some people don't, and I'll leave that up to each of you individually. But the area itself is very nice. And since Warren's not here yet, I will mention some wine that's not on your list. There is an area nearby. Okay, so he's probably going to talk to you about Marsala, which is sort of a little to the west of this, which is the sweet wine. But a little north, there's some great wine also. There's a wonderful estate called Planeta, which you may have heard of. And Planeta has 4 or 5 vineyards throughout. But they have a beautiful vineyard nearby to Agrigento that has accommodations. And we're talking small, boutique, fabulous, like 12 rooms, all suites, absolutely fabulous. Every room has its own like lavender field outside the door. They do cooking classes and all that stuff. So that's something to consider. Because I know that he's not going to talk about necessarily hospitality in wineries, but a lot of the wineries throughout Italy have amazing hospitality as far as accommodations go. So that's something to think about as well. So now we've kind of moved along and we're in Ragusa. So Ragusa is actually an amazing, every one of these cities is amazing. This is another amazing city that is mostly Baroque, but it actually has 2 parts to it. So it was destroyed by an earthquake in the 1600s and they rebuilt. So there's Ragusa Ibla, which is the old town, and Superiore, which is the new town, if the 1600s can be new. So this is also an amazing town. So it's got sort of an old and a new, but everything's really old as far as we Americans are concerned. Amazing just to walk around. The church is beautiful. Again, Baroque architecture, which is lovely. The food is amazing. They have Michelin-starred restaurants, so it's really a place to consider. And also, when you go down, there's also a beach area there as well. So you've got your water, you've got your old town, art, history, food. You could stay for a while. There's other cute little towns in this area. I'm not going to go into all of them. We'll talk about Noto, because look, how can you not talk about this? This is absolutely amazing. They completely cleaned the city, I want to say in 2007. I went there right after they cleaned it, and this is amazing how well they've done, how well they preserved it, because this photo is actually later than that. So they really kept up the cleanliness. So this area, so we got Ragusa, we got Noto. We also have a town called Modica. And if you haven't heard of Modica, Modica is pretty amazing. They've got chocolate there. And if you like chocolate, this is a great place to go. Their chocolate is a little different. They add spices to it. So it's not going to be your straight chocolate like we think of with Hershey or anything like that, but still really good. So a nice long day, Ragusa, Noto, Modica for the chocolate. Also, there's a town also not on here called Caltagirone, which is one of those also hilltop towns with an amazing staircase that you're not busy counting the stairs because each riser of the stairs is made with different tiles, handmade tiles go all the way up the staircase. So you go there to see the staircase, which is pretty fabulous. So again, art and handicrafts are happening throughout the country. One of the other handicrafts that Sicily is famous for, and particular actually in Palermo, are the puppets, which is weird. I'm not a puppet person myself, but they're called pupi siciliani, and they're the Sicilian puppets, and it's marionettes, and they're very intricate. And actually, there's a marionette theater in Palermo that is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So that's a great gift to consider bringing home when you go to Sicily, is bringing home one of the puppets. So now we've kind of moved along, and we're on the southeastern corner. So this brings us to Syracuse, Syracuse, as some people call it. So this is their Greek theater. Take a look at that. It is one of the largest maintained Greek theaters in the world, I believe, made completely of rock. So that's all rock built into the hillside. They still have shows there, obviously not this year, but they still do poetry readings and musical stuff and all of that. So this is a pretty cool thing. So Syracuse is a city, and then it has an island called Ortigia. So we're gonna look at both of those. So this is Syracuse, and also this is Syracuse, and this is called the Ear of Dionysus. It's a pretty cool thing. It's a cave where the acoustics are amazing. And I guess the story goes that Dionysus would stick his prisoners inside and then stand outside, and he could listen to what they were saying because the acoustics were so amazing that he could hear their plots to try to get away. So you can go in and, you know, someone stands at the doorway and someone goes all the way in, and you whisper and you can hear everything. And I have done it myself, and it is true. It's pretty cool. And that takes us out to the island of Ortigia, which I like the accommodations out here better, and it's nice. It's right there on the water. It's a cute little town. It's got a beautiful cathedral that actually has Caravaggio paintings inside. So that's amazing right there that Caravaggio made it over to Sicily. And this is sort of an aerial view of Ortigia, the island of Ortigia off of Syracuse. Beautiful place. Obviously, you can see there's a little beach there in the middle. The water obviously is amazing. There's a castle. And again, you can see the church sort of near the castle. So I recommend staying there for 2 days. However, if you're one of the people that wants to do this in 7 days, it can be done as a day trip from the north, which is where we're going to head. But first, we're going to stop in Catania. So Catania is the other major city in Sicily. So when you look at the map, you see Palermo on the left and you'll see Catania on the right. Those are the two airports as well. So you can also see Mount Etna from there. Sicily has 3 active volcanoes: Vulcano, Stromboli, and Etna. Vulcano and Stromboli are on islands, and Etna is right there in the middle, and she is active. You can see in this picture even that she's smoking. And when you drive by at night, you can actually see the red stuff just kind of shooting around. So it's kind of cool, but it's very safe. I mean, occasionally your flight will get diverted and you'll have to fly into Palermo instead of Catania just due to ash, but it's still very safe. It's certainly nothing like Mount Vesuvius. You know, Etna
When was the last time they had an eruption?
Oh, it erupts almost every night.
Oh, but not anything that.
Not anything. Yeah, exactly. I think the last time I remember it affecting my business was in the early 2000s, where they're like, yeah, we got to shut everything down. There's just ash everywhere, but it didn't wipe out a town or anything like it, you know, like Mount Vesuvius does. So it's not terrible, but she's lovely and she makes great wines and she has lovely accommodations, and people would not still be building hotels literally on her slopes if she was a problem. So that's something to bear in mind. So, okay, so you can see Catania laid out before you. They have an amazing fish market. Their market itself is amazing. I took this picture myself in 2007. I couldn't believe it. Look at that guy. He's huge. And the fish market is a must see. And I highly recommend going to the market, and then going with a chef, into a home and doing a cooking lesson. They have meat as well. But you can see the markets are really jammed with people, which of course makes me feel very anxious right now. And I'm saying, where's your mask? But, in good times, obviously people are going to be around, the markets are going to be hustling and bustling, and it's a great time. So visiting the market on your own, visiting it with a guide, visiting it with a chef, these are all things that you'll want to consider. Again, this is Catania. And she also has an amazing opera house as well. Both Palermo and Catania have incredible opera houses, and they're still, doing their seasonal things every year. And this brings us to the pearl of Sicily. This is Taormina. Taormina also has 2 parts, like we've talked about with some of these cities. This is down on the water. So this is called the Mazzaro Bay. And this is where some of the fancy hotels have their beaches and their private beaches. So if you like things like Belmont's, they have 2 hotels in Taormina, actually. The one down at the sea, which is where this photo was taken from, and then the one up. So there's a funicular from the beach all the way up into town. It's like a 20-minute ride, so you can have great view, but also you can stay by the sea in the summertime if you want, and have that opportunity to have the beaches, the pools. And then in spring and fall, stay up in town and get to have the city experience, if you want to call it that. And that's sort of the view of the beach from above. So you can see the beautiful water, all the rocks. And then if you look, you can see all the umbrellas and all the beaches all set up. And you have an amazing view of Mount Etna from the city. And there is snow in the winter. But look at that, you see palm trees and a snow-capped mountain. So that's very interesting to see together. There's great shopping in Taormina. I mean, Taormina is, I don't want to call it a resort town, but it's the closest thing you're going to get to a resort town in Sicily. But there are pretty amazing things, such as the Greek theater. So it's not just, to hang out and shop, but there are actual historical monuments to see. And this is one of the best preserved ones in all of Italy. And if any of you are fans of Woody Allen, he shot Mighty Aphrodite. All the scenes with Olympia Dukakis were done in the Greek theater here in Taormina. I remember going there the first time and looking around and thinking, why does this look so familiar to me? And then I remembered I'd seen it in a movie. But it's amazing, and they still do operas there. They just had a book festival there a couple of weeks ago. So they do all kinds of events in the theater, which is amazing. And literally, when you walk out the door, you're right in the middle of town. So even though you're looking at this and you're thinking, I'm up high somewhere and there's nothing nearby, the town is literally right outside that door. So that's very cool. So you can walk right in. The Belmont Hotel that I was talking about that's in the city is literally next door to that door. So you could walk out of the hotel and walk into the Greek theater after buying a ticket, of course. So now let's talk about some day trips. This may not look like anything to you, but the most famous day trip that you can do from Taormina is actually to a little town called Savoca. Savoca is where they shot The Godfather. So this is actually the bar that they shot The Godfather at in the scenes in Sicily. They happened right here. And if you were to walk inside, all the walls would be covered with pictures of the Corleone family. So if you're a Godfather fan, this is definitely a day trip you want to do. There's 2 towns, Savoca and Forza d'Agro, that are nearby, and they have all the scenes that they shot the Godfather with. And people are very happy still to discuss that with you if you want to talk about it. And you can get a coffee. The bar is still a bar, so you can get in, and you can't see it in here, but there's little tables outside. So so it's a nice little stop. And then if you walk up the hill, there's actually the church where they got married, Michael and what was her name? You know who I'm talking about. Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, where they got married. The church is right down the street. So this is an interesting stop for film buffs as well. And this is the part where Warren's really gonna shine. This is Mount Etna.
I'm gonna show you again, but
It's That's one of the craters. It's amazing. You can see all the outlying area behind it. And Sandy likes to have you feel like you can be there yourself. So, oh wait, hang on. There it is. There's me on Mount Etna. So you can picture yourself. You can picture me. That's me on Mount Etna about 13 years ago in November. So you see the snow, but it was still a lovely day. And down in Taormina, it was perfectly warm. But obviously, when you go that far up, you're going to want your hat and your scarf and your sweater, but not even a jacket. So the climate is great. I mean, I know we didn't really talk about that. The climate in Sicily is great, except obviously when you're on top of a volcano. So this is, we're going to say here is one of the vineyards from Mount Etna. And then we're going to kind of hand it over to Warren from here, unless you have any questions.
Okay, any questions? Anybody for Beth? If you want, just kind of unmute yourself. Okay. Yeah, Joe Beth.
Yeah, I have a question. Beth, I did some reading about it, and I had heard that you were talking about Palermo being a little gritty. I heard that Taormina is also a little gritty. Is that correct? But Palermo is coming around to being much more of.
We didn't get another one. And that's why.
Here, the 1200.
What?
Less gritty.
Less gritty would be the way, I guess.
Definitely not. Taormina is not gritty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Beth, what is your preferred season to be in Sicily?
I am not one for heat. I live in Chicago and I actually love the weather here. So if you're a normal person, I would say like May, June, September, October. I prefer those. I prefer April, October, because you get nice 70-degree days. Then your brain isn't boiling inside your head, which is something I worry about.
So spring, fall, not summer.
Summer, it's really crowded.
Yeah.
It's the thing, because all the Italians are also going.
And winter?
It can be done, but only certain places. Like something like Taormina, it is unfortunately a resort town, so a lot of it closes down. But places like Palermo or Catania, those are real cities and real people are living there. So that's active all the time. And I'm always saying you should go places off season.
You can always see something. I mean, people often say, what's the best time of year to go? The best time to go is when you can, because if you have an opportunity, you never know when that's going to come again. And whatever you'll see a different season, you'll see a different life cycle. I mean, people often ask me that about the Galapagos, but in the Galapagos, I mean, there's so many natural life cycles that go on that whatever you're going to see is going to be fabulous. And, sometimes I remember I had clients that going to Rome and they could either go in December or May, and they were concerned it was going to be too cold and, all this kind of stuff. And I said, but it's going to be off season because it was early December. They ended up, and I said, May is going to be more crowded. It's going to be, everything else. Plus her husband had some health issues and who knew how he would feel in May. And they went and they sent me back photos of them walking in t-shirts along the river in Rome because they had this warm weather in Rome. So, I mean, you just never know. The best time is to go when it's the best opportunity for you to go anywhere in the world.
I agree. I mean, the first time I went to Sicily was Thanksgiving, 2007. And I was horrified. It was the first time I ever had Thanksgiving without my family. And now, of course, I never have Thanksgiving with my family. But it was amazing. It wasn't a holiday there. Everything was open. So we got to do all these great things. And like I said, it wasn't that cold. I mean, maybe 50 degrees, but that's totally
just kind of San Francisco in the winter. So, it's really not that much. I don't know if anyone of you heard, but there's a town in Sicily called Sambuca, and they're trying to revive the town, and they were selling these ancient homes for €1. And if you would know the name Lorraine Bracco, she was the wife and what was that Italian?
Sopranos.
The Sopranos, right. And now she's Tommy on that, that TV show. So she bought a bunch of them, and there's actually a show on HGTV of her renovating. And she said she bought it and it was like so run down. And but when she went in, under layers of dust was incredible tile floors below. And then she said, the walls were not done with drywall. They were actually hand plastered layer after layer after layer. So she said, you know, the times they were built, they were incredible craftsmen. So who knows? I mean, it sounds like a lot of people are grabbing up these €1 houses, and who knows what will happen to that part of Sicily again. But, you know, things are happening. Jo Beth.
Yeah, I made a mistake on my question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. You get a do-over. You get a do-over.
I was asking, I said Taormino, but I meant Catania.
I wondered, but I didn't want to.
Yeah, I moved. Okay, so that's what I've heard is gritty.
It is a little. It's not as much, I don't think. It is a little gritty, but again, I wouldn't give it the short shrift. It's got great things. It's got great architecture, you know. Again, the Opera House is amazing. They've got a university there. The market that we looked at alone is worth going. And they've got palaces, you know, and they still have aristocrats and stuff. So you can do like a private visit in an aristocrat's home, which is kind of cool. So no, you know, always be careful. But Sicily is also very anti-mafia now. I mean, the most people are. Obviously, we all know there's still mafia, but there's huge movements of anti-mafia now. And tourists aren't, but the anti-mafia is pretty cool. So we always like to support anti-mafia organizations as well, which is kind of cool. So I wouldn't worry about anything like crime, like we worry about in the cities here. It's more, you know, just a little dirty.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it happens. And the thing is that, you know, if you have a good guide, they're going to take you, you know, to the most interesting, out of the way local places, but you know, you're going to be safe.
Exactly.
So, you know, that's always, you know, anybody who's booked with me knows how I feel about private guides. That's the best investment you can ever make in any trip you're going to do. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Any more questions for Beth? Well, I've never been to Sicily. I mean, I've sent people into Puglia, and I'm dying to go myself. And so I can't wait. There's so much on the wish list. You know, it was very interesting. We were just talking recently among a bunch of colleagues, and the 3 phases of a trip: when you make your deposit, when you go, and then the memories when you come home. And the happiest of studies, people have done studies on this, the happiest time on your trip is when you make your deposit and you've got all the anticipation of the trip in front of you. So I've got lots of trips on the books for 2021 and 2022. And every time I just think, oh, that trip is going to be coming up. So if you want to do any of that, you know, just think about the future. Anyway, Beth, this was fabulous. Thank you. Warren, we're glad you made it. So I'm going to turn this over to Warren so we can drink some of this fabulous wine. And Warren, I have to admit, that white wine that I was so crazy about the very first time, that was the wine from Sicily. I opened the wrong bottle.
Oh, wow.
Oh, well, so I just enjoyed it earlier. What could I say? So anyway, Warren, who is our fabulous wine guide, most charming person to introduce you to wine and to taste and to understand the region and to find us these just amazing wine selections are just really fabulous. So Warren, tell us what we're drinking in Sicily and about the wines.
Well, thank you, Sandy. I appreciate it. Nice to see all these familiar faces again. I apologize for coming in a little bit late, Beth. From what I saw, I would love to visit Sicily. Sicily's been on the bucket list for a long time. As I've learned more and more about the wines, met more and more winemakers from Sicily, I learned a few things. One, as a tourist destination, I think it's the fastest growing region in Italy for American tourists. I think that when I was in Italy a couple of years ago. And also the wines are extraordinary now. It used to be very insular, most of it consumed on the island. And now these brilliant wines go all over the world. And Sicily is interesting because we think of Sicily as an island, and Sicily itself is an island. But there are all these tiny little satellite islands around Sicily, Pantelleria and others. This wine, the Salina Bianco, comes from a little island off the coast, and they harvest the grapes, and they can't actually vinify the wines there. They have to bring them onto the mainland of Sicily in order to do those. So we have 2 wines today from Sicily. This Salina Bianco is just a gorgeous, fresh, very typical wine of the region. Obviously, you've got volcanic soils, grapes that, frankly, until I was introduced to this wine a couple of years ago, I'd never heard of, Catarata and Zolia. So Salina is one of those little Aeolian islands right off in the north of Sicily. And as I said, they bring the grapes over in these little barges onto the mainland. But again, still very volcanic soils, very rich in minerality, which gives you that, we see that great Mount Terroir expression in the wines, but also beautiful fruit, very exotic fruits. I don't know what people are getting there. I mean, I get even a little bit of guava, but again, white peaches and things like that. But it's got beautiful herbaceousness to it, and the nose is really, really floral. And of course, if you think of the seafood market that Beth just showed us, there's a perfect wine for all of those kinds of food that you would expect to come off the boats there as they've gone out fishing for the day. Not a lot of wine made around here. I think the entire winery is a few 100,000 cases. I think fewer than those are made. It's generally a very, very well received wine. It's only 12.5% alcohol, which is really, really, really nice. Great acidity, great balance. So that's it's actually has been one of my favorite go-to Sicilian wines for quite some time. I think we were having the 2018 vintage. I think the 2015 vintage was sort of a Tre Bicchieri, the highest honor in Italy, a 96-point wine or something. Yes, I have about 8 bottles of that I have held back for myself to drink. But if you're nice to me, I could be persuaded to part with 1 or 2. Or if you invite me over, I'll bring one and we can sit on the patio and drink it. Right, Stan? So if we can finally figure out when I can do that. Anyway, the other one, any questions on the white wine or white wines of Sicily in general, or Etna or anything like that, or comments on the wine? I see a number of people taking a sip.
Warren, what other white wine do they grow in Sicily?
Well, the Grillo is a wonderful white grape that is in Sicily. You'd be surprised, but there's actually Chardonnay grown in Sicily. And there are a couple of other native varietals that, seeing as I was playing golf this afternoon and drinking beer in the hot sun at my Akamas, and then had some Merceau this afternoon, and now I'm drinking this off the top of my head. To be honest, I can't remember all those grape varietals in Sicily. But there are a number, and they're all lovely. But they all have that similar characteristic, that great acidity, great balance, a great expression of volcanic terroir, which is more minerally than sort of clay soils in the northern Rhone or south of Burgundy, which give more warmth in these wines. So these are very bracing, very linear, very, very good wine with shellfish, or if you're kosher, regular fish, or anything like that. Obviously, work very well with poultry, and I mean, just a lovely fruity wine. Now, the other wine comes from a collection of a winery. In fact, let me see if I can share. I just want to show you a few pictures. It comes from a winery that I was introduced to. Share screen. Here we go. Let's see what we've got here. Let's go Google. So this is Feudi del Pisciato, which I presume you can see. This is the winery on the hilltop, and it's owned by Castellare. It's a large conglomerate of wines. They have some in Tuscany, but you see how beautiful this is. But what they've done is they make a lot of wines. And it's absolutely gorgeous, as you can see. The winery itself is absolutely beautiful, but you can see how old this is. So this is centuries old winery. And what Feudi has done is take the series of wines. Let's see if we can get to wines here. And they have a series of wines that they call their artist series. So those of you who have the Nero d'Avola, the fashion designer collection, I think on some of these others we've done the Cereswala di Vittoria, which is the only DOCG in Sicily. But here's the Nero d'Avola. And you can see the label on this wine that's Versace. So what they've done with these wines is they've solicited a number of fashion designers. So you've got Giambattista Valli, you've got Versace, which is the designer here. Valentino did the label on the Merlot. There's a Cabernet Sauvignon here, that's Missoni, and there are a few others. So what they've done, this is the Frappatos, another red wine grape from Sicily. Here's the Grillo and the Chardonnay. So all these different designers, what they've done is contribute their logos and their profit. What's going on here? Why is it doing this? They've contributed their designs for free to this winery, and the winery is taking all the profits from that artist series of wines, including the Nero d'Avola, which you are drinking tonight, and those profits are going back to restoring these hundreds and hundreds and centuries old and millennia old sites in Sicily, so they don't have to sell them for $1 to Lorraine Bracco. Actually the wife in Goodfellas and the therapist in Godfather. I mean, in Sopranos. So that's when she said to Henry Hill, says, "How much money do you need, honey? I'm going on a trip." She says, "This much," with a little cash. So anyway, so not only is it a great wine and a great winery, but obviously the wines you buy, it's all for a good cause of restoring them. Now, Nero d'Avola is the most famous red wine grape that they make in Sicily. It used to be plonk wine to a large extent. You know, if you got Nero d'Avola from Sicily 30, 40 years ago, it was probably brewed on the inside of a donkey. Today, however, it's very different. They've reconstituted the wineries, and it's a big thick-skinned grape, so it's a big grape. It's got a lot of tannin. Unfortunately, I don't have a bottle, because when I was packing up to deliver to all of you, one of the bottles fell out of my hand, hit my kneecap, and smashed itself all over the garage floor, and I haven't had a chance to order any new wines. But what you should be getting from this wine, if you look, you know, from a color standpoint, you should be getting, you know, beautiful, deep, garnet, ruby colors. I'm no longer sharing, correct?
Right.
But
that's right. You're not sharing.
Okay, good. You should be getting the big, your beautiful, deep red garnet ruby colors. It's you know, dark, you know, an intense nose, more red fruit than black, cherries. But also, it's got some of those elements of terroir. Again, volcanic soil. So it's going to give you in red wines a little bit of earthiness and again, minerality, but also very intense fruit, because in volcanic soils, the vines dig deep, and there's not a lot of moisture in the volcanic soil, obviously. It's really hard rock, and they have to dig deep and force their way to grab every bit of moisture they can, which means the berries are very concentrated. So it's a very smooth wine from memory, a lovely velvety mouthfeel. You should be getting a pretty nice length in terms of the aftertaste. And from that, you would think it would go with the typical things that you would pair with red wine. Roasted meats, also bucco in Sicily, they would, in Italy, they would drink with a wine of this style. And gets a little bit of French oak, but again, not too high in alcohol, only 14%.
John's got the label. You wanted the label, Warren. John Benjamin.
Yeah. That's the Versace. So I mean, for those you know fashion, you saw when I was sharing my screen all the designer labels. So Versace, Valentino, etc. Giambattista Valli does the Cereswala di Vittoria. So it makes a real. And for Valentine's Day, so the Merlot is great. It's that beautiful red Valentino logo. So for the fashionistas out there, makes for a beautiful collection. They actually have 7 wines in the series. So I think maybe Joan or Lainey, we did one of the, I think we may have done the Cerasuolo di Vittoria for one of your series. I can't remember. I think maybe for Joan. So just
Warren, it's funny. I'm looking at their website right now, and they have the line of wines with the birds on the label. And I used to get that from my wine shop in Chicago, which I haven't found out here. But those were fabulous wines.
Yes. So Joan, that's their sister winery, Castellari. So if you go to the very top of that menu bar, you want to click on Feudi del Pisciato for this particular winery. But Castellari is a sister winery from Tuscany that makes absolutely gorgeous wines as well. The owners and they also have a label called Rocca di Frassinello from Tuscany. They make a Merlot called Baffonero in the Maremma out on the Bulgari coast that is, right next to Maceto and Tuarita Redigati, 3 of the greatest Merlots in the world, right up there with Orzone and Petrus and others. But for $175 a bottle, not $800, which is what Maceto is going for these days. Sublime experience, but I don't know. I'd rather do 4 for 1. Unless someone else is paying. So if someone wants to volunteer to have me over to drink a bottle of Maceto, I'll happily join you. So that's Freddy del Pisciotto. That's the Nero d'Avola, the Colossi Salina Bianco. I hope you've enjoyed them. Sicily is one of the most exciting wine regions, not only just in Italy, but in all of the world. Great diversity. Beautiful passito, sweet wine. There's a tiny island off the coast, Pantelleria, and there's a winery that makes a sweet wine, a passito, Ben Rie, R-Y-E, that is one of the greatest sweet wines in the world. Just extraordinary. So beautiful, beautiful, beautiful wines. A lot of the wines, not only on Etna and around Sicily, but on these islands, they grow them like in bunches like this. They wrap around almost like a laurel wreath.
Is that kind of like what we saw in Greece?
Exactly what Jesse showed us in Greece, right? In these circles. I forget what the Italian term for it is.
Yeah, they called them he called them baskets.
Right,
but I don't know
the winds are so strong that if the vines went up ordinarily, they would just roll over. So what happens is you get these vines in these little baskets that lie on the ground, and then the dew and the moisture in the morning, because there's no rain and there's no water there, collects, and that's what gives the vines the moisture they need to create these succulent grapes. A very intense fruit.
That's fabulous. So interesting how people are so ingenious about adapting to their climate and doing these amazing things. It's just, and the history here, I mean, from the Romans to the North, I mean, it just goes back ancient times.
Well, also Sicily, if I recall correctly, is from my history, is the most invaded country or territory in Europe from, when it was city-states, Romans and Carthaginians and Alexander and Greeks and Turks and Moors and Egyptians and everyone went to Sicily.
Okay, so we need to join the crowd and go to Sicily.
I'm there.
Any questions for Warren? Comments? Anything?
Warren, Sandy said something about Marsala. Is that from Sicily also?
No, Marsala tends to be more Spanish wine. Marsala. Now you can get Muscat grapes and things come. I think that they make. In Sicily too, that go into some of the dessert wines, but they may have some Muscat there.
There's a town called Marsala near Palermo, and they have a bunch of producers there.
Yeah, so again, Spanish took over Sicily, so it's probably an extension of that. But I could be wrong, but it's a bit foggy after the beer and the wine and the golf and the sun. But I think Marsala initially was, and is majority Spain. I mean, it doesn't mean they don't make it there. They make Marsala wine all over the place, but I think it's more Mallorca and Spain but there's certainly no region why that Spanish influence wouldn't have migrated over to Sicily and did the same thing. I think, again.
So
As
Warren,
Dennis Miller used to say, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
I think
so
you need
Warren,
to, I think you
Warren,
need
I have a couple of stories you could tell.
Oh, good, Stan.
Okay, so you probably know these stories. There's two stories you could probably tell. One is about the winery where the woman was the fugitive. It was named after the fugitive. I forget the name of that winery in the southern part of Sicily. And the other story is about the wine that they make by putting it in glass containers and aging it underground. Do you know those two stories that I heard when I was in Sicily? There's a winery I visited, which was owned by a woman who was a fugitive or something, and so their wines are called something. I can't remember what Italian for fugitive is, and so maybe you know those stories.
I don't, Stan. You'll have to text me so I can look them up. and I just realized I completely lied to all of you.
Uh-oh.
You're also gullible, you just believe me. So I got confused between Marsala and Madeira, which is similar type of style, sweet, fortified wine. So yes, indeed, Marsala is a fortified wine from Sicily, Madeira from Spain and Portugal. So I apologize.
All right.
I think you just need to go to Sicily.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, clearly I need to do two things: is bone up a little bit more before I open my big fat mouth. However, unlike some people running for office in this country, if I make a mistake, I'll admit that I'm wrong.
So Beth, for you, I spent 2 weeks in Sicily, but the first week was at a wedding in the town, a beautiful little town in the western part of Sicily called Trapani.
Yes.
Are you familiar with Trapani? I would recommend that also. And we stayed in a hotel on a mountaintop near Trapani, not in the town of Trapani. I forget the name of that little hotel, beautiful resort hotel on top of the mountain near there.
Okay.
So the Trapani is another nice little town.
It's amazing. It's a province. If you remember from earlier things, we talked about provinces. Trapani is a province, and Marsala in the province of Trapani.
Okay.
And another thing in the province is a town called Erice, which is a hilltop town similar to what
That's where it was. Yes. Yes. Also, I think it's in Noto. I drove around Sicily in a rented car, and I'll make a comment about that. But I was in 2 weeks. The wedding was a week long in Trapani, but I spent the rest of the week driving around. But Noto is also noted because it has the best gelato in Sicily, possibly in Italy. And I can attest that it was worth going to Noto for. And then the other thing is that when I drove my rented car back to drop it off in Palermo, the lady at the rental car agency walked around my car 3 or 4 times, and she said, "There's no damage. I can't believe it."
Well, in Italy, they paint the inside of their garages the same color as their cars.
Yeah. Yes, and they have this charming custom in Palermo, parking the cars right up on the sidewalk. So you know how we parallel park? They just pull right up on the sidewalk. I mean, all the way to the building. You can't walk. You just can't walk on the sidewalk. So it's a charming custom. But driving in Italy in general is
an art form. It's an art form.
Yeah.
Well, the only place in the world that tops like Italy and some of these other places is Ecuador. Ecuador makes Italy look like student drivers.
Well, I would nominate Boston, but you know.
Anyway, well, we're getting on top of the hour. So thank you all. Again, this has been just really fabulous. And again, if you want to continue in December, just drop a yes or a whatever in the chat box, and Warren and I will go through this. And we were thinking about doing something, as I said earlier, in case some of you came in a little later, maybe kind of focusing on some special wines for the holidays, so that if you want to order some, maybe champagne for New Year's or something else for your holiday dinners, we'll have something that you can look at. And also, it's still time to order wines from Warren for Thanksgiving. So if you need some suggestions, I'm sure Warren will be there to help you. And what else? Tomorrow, please vote whatever your feelings and things are. It's important. It's our civic duty, and we really need to vote if you haven't voted already. And another thing, I just heard from Alma Waterways that they're extending the discount for the Bordeaux River Cruise in November 21 till the end of December. So you can still save your $750 per person on that cruise if you make your deposit by the end of December. And we're going to do another little night on December 8th about that. So if you attend that, you'll be able to get even another $100. So $850 a person off the cruise price is really a great deal. So lots of good things. And remember, the happiest time is when you put your deposit down on your trip.
Sandy, when is your group going to Bordeaux?
It's November 11th is the cruise. And if you want to do the 4 nights ahead in Sebastian and Bilbao, it would be November 7th. And then there's 2 nights post in the Loire Valley.
Nice.
And then the Nile River Cruise is February 2022. So that's what we've got on the books. And I've got some other things cooking, but nothing I can talk about just now. So anyway, have a wonderful evening. This is great. Let us know if you want us to continue in December. And please vote and stay safe, stay healthy. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
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 And Matt, I got your email. I'll follow up with you.
Oh, okay, great. Nice to see you. I like the wines. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, once the white warmed up a little bit and got a little, it was really nice. We liked it. Yeah. I wish I had some sardines for it.
Oh yeah, those would be good. Well, you buy some sardines and I'll bring over some more of this wine.
That'd be nice. Thank you. All right. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, guys. Thanks. Good night.
Good night.